welcome to another episode of With Love Mama the podcast. Thank you for being here. I want to give you a little minor pregnancy update, and then I'm going to jump into today's topic, which I'm sure you'll know by the title of the episode. We're talking about like limiting beliefs and like our subconscious and birth and postpartum. But how am I going? I am pregnant with a toddler, which can be challenging at times, although I have actually been thoroughly enjoying it. My first trimester, different story, especially because I did get quite sick this pregnancy. But now I'm almost at the third try, like I'm getting closer to the third try. I'm feeling good. I would say my physical body, my like lower back area has been a bit like tighter or more sensitive than I am used to. I would say it's very much from lifting it, like picking up my toddler. We live on like a 2-story house, so we have to walk up lots of stairs multiple times a day, and he can walk up them, but sometimes I just pick him up to carry him up the stairs. And I just feel like in those moments I'm always like, this is where I need to surrender and just allow him to take his slow little tiny steps up the stairs rather than actually bending down and picking him up. But also, even aside from that, when you're a mum, you've always got them on your hip. They're just always there, and it's just the best. But I think that could be contributing to my back. So I have been wearing my belly band quite a lot, which is like supportive of my whole like back, sacral area, all my ligaments, belly, holds the belly up, all the things. And that has been really great. I've been really grateful for that. I actually didn't get it until I was postpartum with Kodak, and I got quite a lot of stretch marks. And if I could go back in time, again, I never regret anything, but if I could go back in time, I would have got the belly band earlier on in my pregnancy, because I didn't have pain in my pregnancy with Kodak. So I was always like, there's not really any need. Although wearing that belly band would have really supported the weight of my belly, and I probably wouldn't have got so many stretch marks, because you kind of can gaslight yourself when you're pregnant and think like, oh, I don't even look pregnant, I just look like a bit bloated, or your belly's big, but you're like, oh, it's not that big. But it's because it's slowly grown. And like then I look back at photos and I'm like, girl, your belly was huge. Anyway, so yeah, I've been wearing my belly band a bit, but other than that, feeling really good. My energy levels have been insanely good. I feel like it's because I have been so consistent with prenatals, and I took them through postpartum as well with Kodak, and then continuing into my pregnancy, plus taking like beef organ supplements. So I do take liver, heart, kidney and spleen. I don't take a full dose because I am pregnant, and you don't want to have too much of like I think it's beef heart. Anyway, I'm not giving you medical advice on this, just filling you in on how I'm feeling. And that has been really supportive, I think, for my energy. I've been feeling really good, like sleeping quite well. I've only had 2 nights of pregnancy insomnia, and they sucked. But other than that, I've been feeling really good. And yeah, I just wanted to share that because I know it can be scary, like having a toddler and being pregnant. So I just want to also share, like, I am actually really enjoying it. I am working so much, seeing clients, getting some things sorted, running events, all the things. And it's honestly just been so nice. But I also feel so lit up from the work that I do. So I think it equally doesn't feel like I do thrive being busy. Like I just am someone who loves being busy. So it's all been really well. Like I feel at the moment like I have a really nice balance between nourishing my body for pregnancy, being a very present mum with Kodak, getting my work done, having a lot of family time, having partner time with my beautiful partner Jai, and like I just feel like everything's balancing out really, really well, as well as like a social life and still having time just for me. And I know things are going to shift and change like in the next season, but like it's just feeling really good. Like it's just feeling so aligned and so nice. So that's great. Anyway, let's get into subconscious patterns that you maybe carrying, and just like this whole like conversation around like subconscious patterns and like birth and postpartum and all the things, because your birth and your postpartum experience, it's not actually like random. It's deeply relied on your patterns and like what your belief system is. And this can sound a little bit woo-woo to some, and this can sound a little bit like, well, I was out of control or whatever. And I'm absolutely not taking away from how there are actually a lot of out of control situations happen in the birthing and postpartum process. I'm not invalidating anyone. I'm not saying that anyone's stories are, not valid, or that there weren't other external things. And I just really want to make that clear, because this is a huge topic where lots of complications and things can come to play. So don't think I'm actually like dismissing anything. I'm just sharing the subconscious side to it. So just really keep that in mind. And if you're in a position where potentially you've just had a traumatic birth, traumatic postpartum, you're feeling really sensitive, and you're not feeling in the space where this is a supportive episode, just go find another episode that I think would, just go find another episode, because I think that would be more supportive for you. So most women aren't struggling with, most women, they're not struggling because they're unprepared. They're struggling because they're unconsciously repeating patterns. Now, we all have patterns. We all have things that we repeat, that we do, formed through our childhood experiences or relationship dynamics, potentially conditioning around motherhood, what you've seen on movies or what you've read in books, or just stories that you've heard, or it could be like different medical system narratives that you've heard around birth or have around birth. And even like when you go to those what are they called? Sorry, I've just said so many times. When you go to like pregnancy circles and stuff, like run by like the hospital, sometimes like even there, depending on like the midwives like running that circle, can even like put some narratives onto you of like, oh, this is going to be really hard, labor's going to be really long, all that. So like that's all just like going into your subconscious. We take all these things on, even when you're a little girl and you heard stories about like XYZ. I heard a story when I was a little girl about how birth was really painful. I'm actually going to give you a perfect example. So my mum, when she gave birth to me, she had an epidural, and when you have an epidural, you have a catheter. So what happened was the catheter was not inserted correctly, dropped onto the hospital floor, was picked back up, reinserted. This then resulted in my mum not being quite unwell. I rejected her breast milk. She was very sick. She had a tumor in her leg when she was 12, and the infection, because she got caught like golden staph or something. I don't know the full. I do know the full, but I'm just not going into it. But that went straight to her knee. So she was hospitalized postpartum for those first few weeks, and I was, under the care of my grandparents. So when you are 0 to 3, you are operating only from your subconscious mind. Now, take that story, my mum's experience of birth with me, and then apply that to myself. And I went on, and my biggest fear going into birth was I did not want a medical birth, and I did not want to have epidural. I was afraid of it, and I had a lot of fear around getting a catheter. I've always freaked out about having a catheter, and that is purely because in my subconscious I knew what was happening as a baby. Also, the story has been told to me multiple times as a little girl, as a teenager, as an adult. And then my mum went on to birth like my brother and my sister, and she went into both births and did completely unmedicated, because she also had her own fear, of course, around like the catheter and the epidural. So I just want to use that as an example of like, that is emotional. That story is a belief. So it's an ingrained belief to fear catheters, because it's an ingrained belief to fear like being medicalized during birth, and it's also a belief of that like abandonment for me because my mum couldn't be there. They are emotional imprints stored in my nervous system. And everyone has these. Everyone has different, like I said, childhood experiences, relationship dynamics, like all the things that imprint emotionally and are stored in our nervous system. And when we have these imprints, the patterns are actually run automatically under pressure. So you might go day to day feeling fine, just as I do. I don't think about that fear of having a catheter. I don't think about my fear of being in a hospital setting. I don't think about that, right? But in a pressured situation, that's going to come up. That's going to be really present for me. So that's one big reason why I decided I wanted to birth at home for my births, because I knew I felt safer. I knew that these patterns couldn't really come into fruition in my home. So I, in what the way I could, controlled what my environment was going to be like to support something I knew was imprinted in my nervous system. And that's really what I'm trying to get to, is we all have these subconscious patterns, and the awareness about them is actually like the power piece here, because when you have the awareness, you know how to work with them. And I also want to add, for example, that whole catheter epidural fear that I carried, I don't feel that it's as big anymore. I don't feel that it is as true for me anymore, because it's something that I have continuously, gently acknowledged throughout my journey, especially since becoming a mother. And it's something that I understand is not my story to carry, although I also have an understanding that it is imprinted. So, you know, it's these things, these triggers, whatever they are that come up for you, the limiting beliefs, the more you actually focus on them and allow them to shift, give them space, recognize where they're coming from, recognize that they're not even real for you. Sometimes they're borrowed stories, just as mine was. Then they don't have to be, like, control you as much. Goodness me, Kodak is the loudest napper. Like, I literally just thought that he woke up. No, he just like talks in his sleep. Anyway, let's talk about why subconscious patterns, why this matters for going into birth and postpartum. Like I said, I'm not going to circle back to that. I'm just going to continue moving forward. Otherwise, I repeat myself. So, birth, you're vulnerable. We know this. It's a peak intensity, right? It's super intense. Whether it's, a positive experience, negative experience, whatever experience you're having of birth, it is intense, right? You are entering an altered state. So you don't just have that capacity to logic your way through of, no, this isn't true for me. Like, for example, if I was in a hospital setting with my story and I was in that like altered state, and then I heard someone say, or I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but like if I was like getting an epidural out of my own will or something, or the doctor came in and said I wasn't progressing and an epidural would be really good. That's probably a better example. My brain, wouldn't have had the logic to go, well, let's look at the situation, let's take a step back, blah, 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 blah. It would have just gone straight to fear, my body tensing up, labor definitely not progressing, and then potentially leading to a different birth outcome to what I desired, okay? And when we're in postpartum, we are going through a complete rebirth. Like when we birth our child, we are birthing ourselves as a mother, whether that's the first or the fifth time. So you're going through a massive death. Like you've heard ego death, we're going through an identity death as a mother. We are in a complete space of vulnerability within our nervous system because we are adjusting, we are not sure sort of who we are in this moment, and it doesn't mean we're losing ourselves. It's a huge transition. It's a whirlwind of change. And again, this is the same. Like you don't have the logic to get your way out of things. You just go straight to default subconscious programming. So like these are just vulnerable times, and that's why the beliefs and the limiting beliefs and the things that you are holding actually and your subconscious patterns actually do come to play, because we're vulnerable and it's a time of we're not feeling super safe, maybe, I hope that makes sense. So I want to go into maybe some subconscious patterns that you could potentially have. I can relate to some of these and how they're going to show up in real time, because I've kind of given you a little bit of an example for my own, but I want to get into the somatic of it as well. So let's talk about I'm going to give you 3. So number 1, I have to be a good girl. This can look like people pleasing, not speaking up, overriding your intuition or saying yes when you don't actually mean it. And so when we're in birth or labor, this could look like people pleasing to the providers, people pleasing to people on your birth team. You might not actually agree with what they're saying, but it just feels easier to roll with it. You might not, yeah, basically. So then you're not speaking up. You're just allowing it to go with their flow, not your flow. And then you're not listening to intuition, and then your body's tensing or things aren't going the way that you desire, but you're also not asking for what you want, because it's actually easier to almost hand that control over to others, because it's like, oh, but then I don't want to step on their toes. It's just easier. And in postpartum, this can be like, a friend coming over, messaging you, hey, I would love to come meet the baby. Yeah, sure. Come over. We're home tomorrow. And then you know that they're coming, and you just think, oh my God, I just wish I had no one coming. I just wish I was laying down and not talking to anyone and just having space while the baby was resting or something. They're just like all the good girl wound, really. And these can come up so much, and we can have threads of like the different examples I'm giving you. Like I definitely did in my postpartum, just saying yes when I probably didn't want some people to come over. And I even look back at my postpartum and I just think, oh my gosh, like this is my postpartum with Kodak. And I think it's so interesting, like some of the people who came to visit, I actually haven't seen since then. Like, tell me why I let them into my home. But like we do that. It happens. I'm not shaming myself. We make these decisions and then we can learn from them and things can be different. Number 2 would be, I'm going to go with like an independence wound. I feel like this is huge for women, like hyper independence. So this comes a lot from not actually ever feeling fully supported, or feeling like you have always had to be the support for yourself. Maybe growing up, like I was like the oldest child, so I feel like it can be a lot for like oldest daughters, where maybe you had to help a lot with the younger kids, or like whatever. Like this can be like from that. And in labor, this can show up by resisting like external support. So like your partner might be trying to be like, do you want hip squeezes? Or like going to give you hip squeezes, and it's just like, I'm good, just leave me. But you actually need that support because you're holding a lot of tension. And in postpartum, and this is where it showed up for me, it didn't show up in my birth personally, but in my postpartum, it showed up through burnout, isolation, depletion, overdoing it, pretending I was absolutely okay, feeling like I was absolutely okay because I was convincing myself I was absolutely okay, but not actually recovering properly. So this is a huge one. It's that I don't need help. I'm good. My body knows how to birth. And I'm not speaking to the woman who feels like when she is in birth and loves her own space and doesn't want hands-on and doesn't want anyone speaking to her and is just stuck in her own little trance within her body, connected so deeply to the divine. I'm not speaking to that, because that is absolutely not. I'm speaking to when you know deep down your partner doing those hip squeezes or affirming things to you or offering you a sip of water is what you want and need, but you aren't accepting it because you want to show I can do this. Sorry, mind me. And number 3, I think, I feel like fear of being too much. I think I'm going to go with that, because this is actually massive. So many of us want to dull our own light. And in Australia, if you've heard of like small poppy syndrome, I feel like that's even playing a part of it. Like being successful, it's like, don't gloat about, what's the word? Gloat about it? Yeah, don't gloat about it. It's like, keep that to yourself, or don't speak up, or don't be seen properly for who you are, because that's wrong if you want to express who you are. So in actual labor and in actual birth, this can look like suppressing primal sounds. Like you're trying to keep quiet, you're trying to be a little mouse, and it's like, girl, let yourself roar, make those noises, do what you need to do. It can be suppressing movement. So it's like, even though you know how badly you just want to get on all fours and make a crazy sound you've never made, you're just like laying there and tensing, and yeah, And also it's like not allowing yourself to feel emotions in labor, or like making yourself feel like shameful, like, oh my God, I can't believe like I'm feeling this way. Like, stop. I don't want to be seen. And it's just trying to be quiet and controlled. And in postpartum, this can come up as not expressing your needs properly because you don't want to be too much. You don't want to step on anyone's toes. You don't want to burden anyone. And then this is where resentment builds. So you can see like how these like different subconscious patterns, and there's so many, like so many we could go into. But you can see how they come into play when you are doing, like, you've learnt one thing from your childhood, and this can come into play in your birth and in your postpartum. So just remember that if you don't address it before you're going into birth or postpartum, it can make it a little bit tougher for you. And this isn't to scare you or fear you. And if you're close to birth, you're not too late. Like, it's just more, I want to really bring it back to, like, again, awareness and feeling safe in your body. If you're aware you have these patterns, you can clock them, go, yep, this is playing out, and then just move past it. Like, you can actually shift past it. If you're not aware of these patterns, or you're just not aware of them, they can come up, and then it can go, oh, it's that again. And you can go like, why am I like this? And make it about you. Whereas, like, of course it's about you, but we don't have to stay stuck in it, is what I'm trying to say. So in like the way that these three in particular that I was saying can also like show up in real time in labor or in postpartum is freezing, fawning, shutting down, panicking when the intensity arises rather than softening and surrendering to it, and disconnecting from your body. And I mean, you want to be connected. You want to be calm when the intensity arises, not calm in the sense of being the good girl and breathing deeply and not making a noise. No, but like, you want to be calm and feel safe in the intensity. So yeah, that is like pretty much I've kind of lost my train of thought there for a second. But I think I was just saying, like, when you we want to feel, sorry, that's where I was going with it. We want to feel connected. We want to feel safe. And if we're not feeling those ways, that's where labor can be halted. Whereas if we have the awareness of these patterns, we can clock them, move through it. We're probably not going to stay stuck in like that shutdown or like the freeze or the fawn or anything like that. We're probably just going to, most likely with the awareness, be able to move through it and understand, okay, this is coming up. Let's just move through it. Let's just breathe through it. In postpartum, these can show up with like resentment towards your partner, feeling like you're failing and you're a shit mom, like feeling like you're just not doing it properly, feeling like you weren't made for it, losing your identity completely and trying to control your like home, your family, or maybe your work, or things just like so much. And it's like the lack of surrender. And again, as you can hear, like, surrender is honestly huge. It's like having the awareness and then surrendering to what is true, what is happening. Okay, before we wrap this up, I've gone into like the subconscious patterns, and you can explore this. And I do have an online course that is coming out, and it is like a ebook vibe where I'm going to have some stuff around, there is some stuff, sorry, in there around like limiting beliefs and a bit of reprogramming and stuff. So that could be really cool for you. But I just really wanted to remind you from this episode is the way that you have learnt to exist in this world since you're a little girl, it is the way that you will try and birth and mother if you don't have the awareness, or if you don't try and shift some of these unhelpful subconscious patterns. So it doesn't have to stay that way. The awareness is a huge piece. And things that can change these limiting subconscious beliefs, just to touch on, is like safe spaces. I always go on about safe spaces because they are game changing. Get yourself in like with a doula, or in a women's circle, or even this upcoming course that I have, resource, is going to be so slay for you. We want to expose ourselves to like new evidence, so like that it doesn't have to be terrible. So like some of the birth stories on my podcast could be a great start, watching different physiological births, things like that. So somatic work, which is working with the body, bringing in dance, bringing in movement, breath work, things like that, and doing some repatterning, which I'm not going to dive into that, but basically we want to reprogram, repattern, change what we believe, shift what we believe, tell ourselves a different story until we believe it, because we only believe one story because we were told it so many times. So you can shift it. If you loved this episode, please share it with a friend. I would love for other mums to hear this podcast and for this podcast to grow. And don't forget, if you haven't already, followed the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Do that. Do all the things. Rate the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you haven't already. And I love you so much. Thank you so much for being here and supporting the podcast. And I will be back in your ears next episode. Bye.